Hey guys, today I'm going to be teaching you how to solve the Rubik's Cube. So if you've never solved the Rubik's Cube before, it may seem incredibly hard. But today I'll teach you an easy method that I've taught many people, and if anything is unclear, I'll go over it again at the end of this video. Okay, so before we get started, there's a couple things you need to know about the Rubik's Cube. First of all, these pieces in the middle are center pieces, and they'll always stay in the middle, and they'll always be opposite colors. For instance, green center is always opposite the blue center, and it doesn't matter how much I turn it, always the same, blue, green. Same for yellow and white and red and orange. There's a couple more things you need to know though. First of all, the pieces with 2 colors are called edges, and the pieces with 3 colors are called corners. And the 2 pieces of the edges and 3 pieces of the corners will always stay together because they're physically put together. These two will never come apart. Now there's really only 8 steps, so let me show you them. First of all is to get the 4 edges with white on them facing up around the yellow centerpiece. Okay, so the next step is to get the 4 white edges around the white center, but also the side colors of the white edges to match the centers, like this. Next is to get white all on one side, but also the colors on the edge to match. Next is to get the first 2 layers completely solved. By the way, this is a layer, just one part you can turn, so both of these layers are solved. Next is to get the yellow edges facing up around the yellow center. Next is to get all of yellow facing up, then to get all the corners like this, so the corner colors always match. Then to solve the entire cube. And that may seem very hard, but it's mostly done in 6 steps. So let me show you the steps and how to do them. And before we do that, you need to know some cube knowledge. So first of all, turning the up face, this face that's up, is called U, and turning it clockwise is a U. So if I say U, that means upper face clockwise. But if there's an apostrophe next to the U, that means counterclockwise. So U prime is how we say it when there's apostrophe. And then turning it twice is called a U2. So U2. And it doesn't matter what direction you turn it. So it could be this way or this way. Next is the same thing for the right face. So right face, and clockwise is R, counterclockwise is R apostrophe, which is called R prime, and then twice is called R2. Next is front face. You can think of this one more like a clock, and turning it clockwise is the move F. Turning it counterclockwise is the move F apostrophe or F prime, and turning it twice is the move F2. So now let's start on the daisy. So what you want to do for the daisy is hold the yellow center on top and find white edges like these in the middle layer. So these pieces. And how you're going to do that is you're going to locate one. So a piece with 2 colors that is white, that's in the middle layer. And you're going to move it to the top with an R move. And if that doesn't work, say you have this edge in the middle layer, so you hold on the front right and do an R move like this. It goes up, but white isn't on top. It's on the side. It's supposed to be here. So what you're going to do is undo that. And then instead of doing an R move, do an F prime to move it up like that. Now we continue. Here's a piece that can be moved up with R, right? Because F prime would make it flip, so it has to be R. And now, oh no, there's no more white edges in the middle layer, so that means it's in the bottom layer. And if white is facing down in the bottom layer, you simply bring it by doing turning the bottom layer to a place that doesn't have a white edge, and then move it up with R2. Okay, so there's a couple more cases you can get. One's this, where you have a piece in the top that's flipped, and what you're going to do is bring it down like this, and then put it back up the other way, like that. But there's even more cases. Say you have a piece in the bottom layer, but instead of white facing down, it's facing to the side. So what you do then is, instead of bringing it up with R2, what you're going to do is bring it to the middle layer with F or F prime. Let's say we do F prime. And then you have the middle layer case where you can either move it up with R or F prime. And R right now is the one that will get it so white's on top, because F prime makes it so it's on the side. Then there's one more case. Say you have the piece in the middle, so you put it up, but it pushes this one out. So what you're going to need to do is, when you put a piece up, always make sure that there isn't a piece with white already there. So you bring the piece without white by doing the top layer like that, and then you'd bring the piece up. So that's all the cases you can get. And the next step is to make the white cross. So how you do that is, now that you have your white pieces like this around the yellow center, you're gonna find one, so let's say the white and blue, and then turn the top face until you match it up with the center color. So see how these two colors match? That is how you know it's right. This isn't right because these two colors don't match, so you just turn it until it's right. Then you put it on the right and do R2. Now you find another one. Oh, this one already matches, so R2. And then this one, turn it till it matches. Oh, there it matches, so R2. And the last one, it's already matched, so R2. And there you go. That is your cross. Now we need to finish making the white layer, and let me show you how. So what you're going to do is find a white corner, the ones with 3 pieces, in the top layer. Because remember, if you have white on the bottom and yellow on top, this is the top layer. And right now I don't actually have any, which is very unusual. They're all in the bottom layer. So what you're going to do is, if they're all in the bottom layer, you're going to put one on the right and then do this algorithm. R, U, R prime, or R counterclockwise, U prime, or U counterclockwise. Now that you have a piece in the top layer, you can put it in to the right slot, and I'll show you in a second. But before, if you already had a piece in the top layer, great, you just skip that step. But now that we have a piece in the top layer, it has white, blue, and orange. So we find where it goes, which is between the white, blue, and orange centers. So that happens to be right here. White, blue, orange. So we're going to bring it by using up moves. We're going to bring it on top of the white, blue, orange, because that's white, blue, orange. We're going to bring it on top of where it needs to go. It needs to go here because it's between those, but we bring it up here. Hold it on the right, and then do this algorithm. Also, if you didn't know, algorithms are sequences of moves. For instance, R, U, R prime. So the algorithm we're going to do is R, U, R counterclockwise, or R prime, U counterclockwise, or U prime. Now you can see it's in the right spot, but it's twisted. White's supposed to be on the bottom to match up, but it's on the side. Also, you're not allowed to twist corners like that. That's just something I did to explain. So what you're going to do is keep doing that algorithm until it's correct. So R, U, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, U prime. And there we go. After 3 times, it's correct. It can vary from 3 times to 1 time to 4 times. So let's find another piece in the top layer. Oh, here's one. And if there isn't one, you can just bring one out from a slot. Here's one. Also, this is what I mean by slot, the bottom corner. So white, green, and orange. So it needs to go between the white, green, and orange centers. So we'll just move it with upper layer turns until it's right on top of those slots, or those centers. So white, green, orange, white, green, orange. So it's on top of where it needs to go, because it needs to go between those 3. So it's on top. Hold it on the right and do the algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime. Oh, and we did it once and it solved. Great, so next we're going to look for another corner in the top layer. So let's say white, green, and red. Move it to where it needs to go between the white, green, and red. So we have it on top. And now we do the algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime. Keep doing that. U, R prime, U prime. R, U, R prime, U prime. Now we have 3 done. And there's no more in the top layer. The last one's in its place, but twisted. So what you're going to do now, if it's in its place, but twisted, is just hold it on the right, so front right here, and just do the same algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime. Just keep doing that until it's solved. Now that we have all of the corners done, we can move on to the next step. The next step is to fill in these pieces with the right color. So how we do that is we find a piece on the top, an edge piece on the top without yellow. So these 2 don't work, but this one and this one do. And if there aren't any, then you're going to have to bring one out, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But assuming there are, which there almost always are, then you'll find one without white. So let's say blue, red, and then we find where it needs to go. So blue, red, in between these 2 centers. And we're just going to move it near them. And now we're going to need to match the color on the side of the piece, not the top, the side, with one of these 2 colors, whatever it matches up with. So if we keep doing up moves, we can see it matches with the right, but it doesn't match with the left. So now that matches with the right, we'll hold it right here and then do this algorithm. And if it goes on the left, it's a slightly different algorithm. I'll show you that in a second. So the one on the right is R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R, U, R. There we go. You can see it's now between the 2 centers it needs to go. And that's great. So let's find another one. Say red and green. So what we're going to do is find where it needs to go between the red and green centers. So here and here. And then we'll move it over. And oh, no, it doesn't match here, but it matches this one. Now you can see if we hold it here, it matches on the front instead of the right. So if it matches on the front, what you're going to do is rotate to the right like that, so it's on the left now, and do this algorithm. L, which is actually just the left side clockwise, so L, U, L, U, L, U prime, and then L prime, which is left counterclockwise, L prime, U prime, L prime. And there you go. You have one solved. So actually now we have 2 solved because we've done both. Now we have one more on the top, so all yellow except for this one. Great. So move it above where it needs to go. So orange, blue, which is between the orange blue centers. So here's orange, here's blue. So what we're going to do is, it doesn't match orange, but it does match blue. So this one's on the right. So the algorithm is R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R, U, R. And it's done. Now we have one left, and I'm going to show you a case that you can sometimes get that is quite annoying. So you're looking for it, all the pieces are yellow, and it turns out it's actually in the right place between the green and orange centers, because it's green-orange. But it's wrong. As you can see, it should be where green is here and orange is here. It's flipped, kind of. So what you do if it's in a place but flipped, you do this. You hold it on the right and do the algorithm R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R, U, R. Same algorithm as the last time, but it doesn't actually solve it. It just puts it in the top layer. See, it's right there. And then you can match it up normally. So, oh, it matches up with the front, which means we rotate to the right. And then do the algorithm L, U, L, U, L, U prime, L prime, U prime, L prime. Remember, L prime is left counterclockwise. And now you're done the first two layers. This is all solved. But there's one more case you can run into. Let me explain. You've done two of your edges, so let's say this one and this one. And now there's nothing in the top layer. And these two are not correct. So what's happened here is both pieces without yellow are in the middle layer, where my thumbs are, but they're not in the right spot. So what you have to do then is just take one of them and then hold it on the front right and do the algorithm R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R, U, R. And now you have it taken out. So now there should always be one piece in the top layer once you've done that. So red and blue. So it doesn't match here, but it matches here. So when it matches on the right, you do algorithm R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R, U, R. And now you have that one solved. And then you have one more, which is actually already matched up on the right. So same algorithm. R prime, U prime, R prime, U prime, R prime, U, R, U, R. Now you're done the first two layers, by far the hardest part. And now let's get on to the last layer. So what you're going to do here is you're going to get all the yellow edges to face up, like this. And this is what it looks like when it's done. See how all the yellow edges are facing up and there's no yellow on the sides. And there's a couple cases you can get. One where there is a line like that. One where there is a L like that, or kind of like two clock hands. And one where there is nothing. It's just a dot. So let's start from the dot. If you have the dot, what you've got to do is the algorithm. You can do it from anywhere, as long as yellow's on top. Do the algorithm F, so front clockwise, R, right clockwise, U, R counterclockwise, or R prime, then U prime, then front counterclockwise, F prime. And now you see you have the L. And if you started with the L, then great. And if you have the L, you can hold it so it's like a clock at 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock and do the same algorithm. Front clockwise, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime to get a line. And once you have a line, you hold it like this, so it's facing off to the sides, and do the same algorithm. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime. So to recap, what you do is if you have a dot, you do the algorithm. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. To turn it into this, the L, or the clock, at 9 and 12, you put it here, and then you do the same algorithm. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. And if you started with those two, great, you just do it. And then you have the line, and you do the same algorithm. If you start with the line, great, you can just do the algorithm. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. And now we're on to the yellow corners. So what you're going to do for these is find any that are already facing up. So yellow is on the top, so these two. And if there aren't any, that's fine. But what you're going to do is flip the cube over like this. So white's on top. And then find any yellow corner that is not facing down. So it's not, the yellow isn't next to the yellow center like this. And then what you're going to do is bring it to the front right, or bottom right like this. There. And you're going to do this algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime. And do that until it's solved. R, U, R prime, U prime. So now we can see it's solved because yellow is with the yellow center. Now we're going to move on to the next one. So 3 are done, 1 isn't, so we'll bring it to the front right. Make sure you don't rotate the whole cube, that will mess it up. Make sure you just do bottom turns till it's at the front right. Then you do the same algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime. R, U, R prime, U prime. R, U, R prime, U prime. R, U, R prime, U prime, until it's done. Now if we flip it back over, we can see we have all of yellow on top. Okay, so now that we've done the first 2 layers and put yellow on top, now what we're going to do is look for corner pieces that match. So we're going to look at the colors here and here on all the sides and see if there's 2 that are the same. So these 2 aren't the same, but these 2 are. And if 2 are the same, then hold them on the left, like here. So these 2, it's also kind of called headlights because they could look like the headlights of a car. And do this algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime. And now you can see that all of these match. But there's one more case you can get, which is if not, there's no 2 that match. So these are opposite, these don't match, and these don't match. So now you know that nothing matches. So what you're going to do is hold it from anywhere. Like it doesn't matter how the top face is oriented. Let's just say there and do the same algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime. Now you can see you have the case where if you look around, there's 2 that are like headlights or that match. So you hold them on the left and do the same algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R2, U prime, R prime, U prime, R, U, R prime, F prime. And now you can see, yeah, all the corners match. So now you can turn the top until the corners match the center, and now we can see that all that's left are the edges. So what you're going to do is there's multiple cases you can get. One where it's already solved, and then, well, you just got to skip, which is lucky. But there's more where you have all the corners, and then 2 corners have the same edge color, so it makes like 3, or like a big bar. And if you have this case, don't worry if you don't have this, I'll get to that later. If you have a case where there's 3 that of the same color, you hold them in the back and do this algorithm. R, U prime, R, U, R, U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R2. And you keep doing that until it solves. So, oh, it didn't solve, so hold the bar in the back and do it again. R, U prime, R, U, R, U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R2. And there you can go. Now you see that the Rubik's Cube is just 1 turn away from being solved. But there's one more case. One where you look around and there is no bar, no 3, like there match. So in this case, you just hold it from anywhere. And when I mean hold it from anywhere, I mean like it doesn't matter how the top layer is oriented. So just whatever, say that. And then you do the same algorithm. R, U prime, R, U, R, U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R2. Now you can see I have the case with the bar, so here. So you hold it in the back and do the algorithm until it's solved. So R, U prime, R, U, R, U, R, U prime, R prime, U prime, R2. And now you can see it's 1 turn from being solved. And congratulations, you just solved the Rubik's Cube. Now to be able to do without a tutorial, you'll need to memorize all the steps that I showed you. But once you've done that, you can solve it anywhere with any scrambles. So congratulations on solving your first Rubik's Cube. Bye, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something new.